In 1942, a group of scientists in Germany began to develop a top-secret military weapon, a mysterious bell-shaped device with monstrous dimensions of about 9 by 12 feet. It is made of hard and heavy metal. According to surviving descriptions, inside rotated 2 high-speed, rotating in opposite directions, cylinders filled with a metallic-looking liquid, highly radioactive, codenamed Zerum 525, which served as the main power source. But the device was also rumored to possess another, far more terrifying property: the ability to manipulate space and time. Towards the end of World War II, the machine was completed in hopes of turning the tide of the conflict in favor of the Third Reich. But of course, this did not happen. After Germany's surrender, the mysterious device vanished without a trace, seemingly evaporating off the face of the earth. We will look at the mystery surrounding Die Glocke, or the bell, a legendary device so powerful that it could change reality as we know it. But did it really exist? Is it a hoax? Or is there a truth that the world is not yet ready to accept? Germany's Third Reich today undoubtedly ranks first among the most sinister regimes in modern history. And not just because they murdered millions and destroyed much of the world, but because they pursued dubious and even sinister experiments whose limits remain shrouded in mystery to this day. We all know that in their heyday, the Nazis were obsessed with everything to do with expanding their power, including their notorious scientific experiments, many of which seem even ludicrous from today's perspective. Thus was born the term Wunderwaffe, wonder weapons, super innovative and technologically advanced weapons that the Germans either successfully created or designed but never implemented. Probably the most popular example of these wonder weapons, which undoubtedly exist in real life, is the V2 rocket. It is the world's first long-range guided ballistic missile. And do you know what comes directly as a result of the creation of this super missile? Space rockets. The creator of the V2, Wernher von Braun, an SS officer, was later taken in by the US government. And, surprise, he played a key role in the creation of the Apollo program that sent a man to the moon. It's hard to admit it, but in a way, with their experiments, the Nazis helped mankind get to the moon. Paradoxical, isn't it? Most of you are probably familiar with the fact that immediately after the end of World War II, a new, invisible, but no less intense race began: the Cold War. And what was one of its key moments? The so-called space race. The 2 bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were a stark reminder of what it means to lose your military edge. So the US and USSR rushed into a relentless race in which any technology capable of securing absolute military superiority was pursued with maniacal determination. Both sides used every possible tactic and means, whether ethical or not, to achieve their ends. This included espionage, sabotage, and even hiring former enemies who had literally tortured and killed thousands just a few years before. In those years, acquiring scientific data and expertise from allies or even enemies was vital. So much so that the US government was willing to turn a blind eye to the horrific past of mercenary scientists as long as it could get them on its side. Wernher von Braun was just the tip of the iceberg. One of the most mysterious cases is that of Hans Kamler. Kamler was a senior SS officer and engineer responsible for overseeing some of the Third Reich's largest scientific projects, including the V projects we have already mentioned. His importance was so great that many called him the last hope of the Führer. And here comes the mystery. In 1945, towards the end of the war, Kamler supposedly took his own life. His wife even filed an official request to be declared dead. But many do not believe this version. Why? Because his body was never found. Because Hans Kamler simply disappeared. The official version, of course, is that Hans Kamler took his own life in Bohemia shortly after Germany's surrender. There are also letters sent to Kamler's wife by another SS officer confirming that he did indeed escape to Prague, claiming that the Americans were after him and that Kamler was adamant that he did not want to be taken alive. But despite numerous post-war searches, he was never found. That is, until a former OSS agent, the forerunner of the CIA, named Donald W. Richardson, who claims that it was he who brought the German engineer to the US, and that Kamler was alive until at least 1947, when he took his own life. Zrenia, but this time, for real. Interestingly, Richardson was part of Operation Paperclip, the top-secret program by which the US enlisted Nazi scientists in exchange for protection and a new identity. And here's where it gets even more curious. In 2019, the Woodrow Wilson Institute published official evidence that Hans Kamler had indeed set foot on American soil, though his fate after that remains unknown. Now we come to the most crucial question. What is Kamler's connection to the mysterious time bell? Well, it turns out that Kamler was the man who likely betrayed the Die Glocke project to the United States in exchange for his freedom. In 2001, the British writer Nick Cook published a book called The Hunt for Zero Point, which told the story of the Die Glocke device. It is based on information from Polish researcher Igor Witkowski, author of the book The Truth About the Wonder Weapon, Prawda o Wunderwaffe, who in turn claims to have gained access to declassified documents from Polish military intelligence. Cook is the man who brought the subject to light and made it a sensation. In his book, he describes the bell as a glowing, rotating bell-shaped device about the size of a large industrial tank or small room. But that's not all. The device was powered by a glowing crimson liquid called Zerum 525. It reportedly had an anti-gravity effect, technology that could power flying saucers. That's not all. And even more amazing, Die Glocke could warp space and time around itself, effectively turning it into a time machine. But there was one serious problem. The device was highly radioactive thanks to its unexplained energy core, a mercury-like substance that emitted deadly radiation. Many of the scientists and engineers working on the project did not survive contact with it. Sadly, the same was true for the dozens of prisoners at the Gross-Rosen camp used for experiments. The few who managed to escape told of terrifying tests with the bell and a blinding bluish light coming from the device. According to Witkowski, the ruins of a metal frame found near the Wenceslas mine are the remains of a test site where experiments with anti-gravity and the potential propulsion system of Die Glocke were conducted. Rumors swirled that if the Nazis had actually completed the device, or at least been close to it at the end of the war, the Führer could have turned the tide of World War II, or at least prolonged it significantly, by having a functioning time machine. Of course, that didn't happen. Germany falls, and Kamler is the only survivor, despite the machine's destructive radiation and, allegedly, knowing where it is and how it works. After Kamler was transported to the US, he allegedly handed over the technology, or even the device itself, to the Americans as a bargaining chip for his freedom. To this day, Die Glocke's technology remains hidden, or lost forever. But several questions remain hovering over this entire story. Did Die Glocke really exist? If so, did it possess anti-gravity technology, or the ability to manipulate space and time? Well, the direct answer is, most likely, no. And the main reason for this is that there is no real evidence that such a device even existed. The Hans Kamler part may be true. He may have escaped Europe and been accepted into the US under Operation Paperclip, but his involvement in the creation of this particular device is, to say the least, dubious. The reason is that the only sources on which this entire story is based are two people, Nick Cook and Igor Witkowski. Cook actually got his information from Witkowski's book, and Witkowski, for his part, claims to have drawn it from declassified Polish government documents, as well as from several interviews and other research of his own. But the document in question, on which the entire story is supposedly based, has never been publicly presented, cannot be traced, and no one else has seen it. The reason? Witkowski claims that he gained access to the document through an anonymous official in the Polish government, and that he was only allowed to read and write from memory, but not to make a copy. According to him, the document was a witness report from the war crimes trial of General Jakob Sporenberg, in which he admitted that at least 60 people died during the Die Glocke experiments. Werner von Braun was also allegedly involved in this case. But these documents have never been published, nor has anyone other than Witkowski himself seen them. This in itself casts serious doubt on the whole story. The lack of any real evidence makes the claim easily refutable, and places it alongside the dozens of other conspiracy theories that shroud Nazi Germany in myth and mystery. Furthermore, the strongest argument against the existence of Die Glocke is a simple matter. If the US did get its hands on the device, where is it now? Why don't we have anti-gravity technology? Why don't time machines exist? How come they were able to create space rockets like those of the Apollo program from German blueprints, but never invented anything with the scale and power attributed to Die Glocke, if it really existed? Yes, the thought of such a device is no doubt intriguing and fascinating, but until some actual proof, be it a prototype, a technical drawing, documents, or even a photograph emerges, Die Glocke will remain one of the wildest, most fantastic, and most debated conspiracy theories associated with Nazi Germany. Or isn't it? In 1965, something strange happened in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. On the evening of December 9th, multiple people in the northeastern United States reported seeing a bright fireball in the sky. In fact, the phenomenon was so large that it was even spotted in Ontario, Canada. And here's where it gets interesting. An object the size of a large industrial tank crashes into a forest near Kecksburg. And its shape? It resembled a bell. According to many who believe in the existence of Die Glocke, it was the Kecksburg Incident that may have resulted from secret military testing of the device. Back then, the Cold War was still in full swing, even though a full 20 years had passed since the end of World War II. So was the incident just another UFO sighting? Or was it that mysterious Die Glocke, first seen by civilians, albeit by mistake? According to official reports, it was a bolide, a meteorite body that entered the atmosphere and burned up. In 2005, however, NASA issued a bizarre statement claiming the object was the remnant of a Soviet satellite. But there's a problem. The original report on the case has disappeared, officially lost in 1987, and has never been seen again. Have you ever wondered why so many conspiracy theories originate with the Führer and the Nazis? Nazi gold, secret bases in Antarctica, UFOs, hollow Earth. The list is endless. Perhaps it is because the Third Reich, with its cruelty and secrets, still lingers in darkness and mystery. Their obsession with the occult, their quest for super technology, and the disappearance of key scientific archives make Nazism the perfect breeding ground for all sorts of theories. It's easy to call it all another conspiracy. It's more convenient that way, to tell ourselves we have nothing to worry about. But let's not forget, the same people who made the world hell during the war then got deals, new lives, and complete silence. Maybe some of these theories really are the stuff of fantasy, but they prompt us to ask the most important question: how much of what we believe to be true really is? And while the world's powers race to acquire the best brains in creating disruptive technologies, those same powers are in every way attempting to suppress, silence, or even eliminate those who might make a resource freely available to the people. Learn more about this in the video to the left.